Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to talk about how to play Protection Warrior in patch 10.0, the Dragonflight pre-patch. I have written about this on Wowhead, so you can check that out if you want a little more depth and you don't mind reading. The big difference between Dragonflight and Shadowlands is primarily the new talent system, so this video is going to overlap a little bit with the Dragonflight preview that I am planning to do soon. I want this to be a bit more of a guide, though, since Blizzard may still change things, and I really want to do an in-depth talent-by-talent analysis once things are closer to the expansion release and changes are less likely. Let me start off here by saying I really love the state that Protection Warrior's in right now. It has not been good in Shadowlands. It's been okay in Seasons 3 and 4 due to Blizzard buffing it over and over again, but it wasn't good early in the expansion at all, and it still didn't end up very strong. It was mediocre at best. I still played it because I like it and I want to like it, but a lot of people gave up on it, and I couldn't blame any of them. Now all of those bad days are behind us. Protection Warrior is by far the best tank in the game in Dragonflight, and anyone who says otherwise is basically just lying because they don't want Blizzard to nerf it. This is the only thing that's giving me any hesitation as to what I'm going to play at the start of Dragonflight 2. Warrior is the best tank right now. Monk is very good, DK and DH are also looking really good, but Warrior is the best tank. It's virtually unkillable through all of our raid testing. It has great group utility, great mobility, it does good damage, it's good at everything, and it's really easy and fun to play. There's only one question that remains. Will Blizzard realize what an awesome mistake they've made and nerf Protection Warriors before the first tier? I'm hoping the answer is no, but there's no way to know, and I just want to be prepared in case they do. Now let's jump into the important stuff. And we'll start with how to play Protection Warrior in Dragonflight in the pre-patch. Protection Warrior is a class that focuses on three things: maintaining shield block, managing rage, and using cooldowns effectively. If you can handle those aspects of the class, it is extremely powerful, it's versatile, it can tank anything, and it's just a really big positive to any group that you're a part of. Protection Warriors have excellent mobility, great cooldowns, and the strongest damage mitigation toolkit in the entire game. What more could you ask for? Prot Warrior doesn't feel dramatically different in the Dragonflight pre-patch from how it played early in Shadowlands. This is a pretty big difference when compared to other tanks like Vengeance Demon Hunter, which has gotten a pretty significant rework, Prot Pally, which has gotten a pretty significant rework, or Brewmaster Monk, which has gotten a crazy amount of changes. Instead, Prot Warrior basically gained tons of power, but most of it is in the form of passive bonuses or talents that apply extra benefits onto skills you already cast in the standard rotation, which, kind of falls under the category of passive bonuses. A lot of Protection Warrior's strength has just come from eliminating the opportunity costs of taking talents that were in the old tree. Prot Warriors actually had really strong talents before. They were just all placed in the same rows, forcing you to choose from one appealing option of a group of 2 or 3, and now you can just have all of them at the same time in a lot of cases. Not really very surprising that this has made the class super strong. Prot Warrior is also simpler than it has been throughout the end of Shadowlands. The removal of tier set bonuses with the 10.0 pre-patch means that the super frantic 90 action per minute playstyle is going away. Instead, Protection Warriors will play much more like they did in Seasons 1 and 2, with more normal amounts of abilities cast per minute. Like the usual 50 to 60 that a normal, regular World of Warcraft class has, rather than trying to break your keyboard and your wrist. Additionally, while Reprisal is still the strongest legendary power available to Protection Warriors during the pre-patch, it's no longer an absolutely mandatory must-have bonus that provides a critical boost to shield block uptime that you literally can't live without. Now it provides extra rage, and it affords you the opportunity to sacrifice good defensive talents in exchange for more offensive talents. If you really hated playing with Reprisal, you can drop it in favor of running the wall and then use your talents that would boost your shield block uptime to compensate. This is the way that you're going to play in Dragonflight anyway. You're not going to have Reprisal to boost your shield block uptime. you just run really good shield block talents in Dragonflight, and that's it. You will sacrifice some offense for the sake of simplicity, but it won't make the character a horribly squishy mess, which is very different from how it was throughout Shadowlands. Basically, you lose some damage, and you lose some rage generation, and it's fine. One very important note, the wall and the talent Impenetrable Wall that do the same thing do not stack with each other. So if you wear the legendary The Wall, be sure to drop Impenetrable Wall for Unbreakable Will or just another talent somewhere else in the tree entirely. I'll just quickly cover how strong Prot Warrior is in the Dragonflight pre-patch. Very, very strong. It's basically the best tank in the game now. It's definitely the best tank in the game once you hit level 70 during Dragonflight. And that's it. There's nothing else left to say here. Let's cover talent setups now, and I have 3 main trees that I want to focus on. You are able to copy and paste talent trees to other players, which is really great. So I will have links in a pinned comment with each of these trees so that you can directly import them to your warrior in-game. The first tree is the leveling tree. To be honest, there aren't a huge number of differences between any of these 3 trees. Warrior has a really, really strong skeleton for its talent setups, and that holds true whether you're leveling or raiding or doing Mythic Plus dungeons. So I'll just emphasize the key talents in this leveling tree. Impending Victory is the one I want to emphasize first. It's an excellent, inexpensive self-heal that you should make full use of while leveling. It will save your bacon quite a lot. This has been a talent available to Prot Warriors for forever, but it's always been up against really, really strong talents, and by comparison, it was terrible. But now that it's been decoupled from that high opportunity cost of giving up something really strong, like 10% more life all the time, it's great, and I'm happy to finally see it get some use. Deeper in the class tree, Avatar is your main offensive cooldown. It's really, really strong. It has great talent synergy elsewhere in the tree as well. And on that subject, anger management over in the spec tree provides a ton of offensive and defensive cooldown uptime for a single point, reducing the cooldown of Avatar and Shield Wall just for spending rage. It's extremely rewarding, and it creates a positive feedback loop with rage generation. This is probably, as much as any other individual talent, the reason that Prot Warrior is fun to play. Generating more rage reduces the cooldown of Avatar. Using Avatar helps you generate more rage, which reduces its cooldown, and so on. And on the subject of talent synergy, right next to it is Impenetrable Wall. This grants more rage off of your shield slams to fuel the rotation and shaves 5 seconds off of Shield Wall's remaining cooldown every time you shield slam. It's great. But wait, there's more. Rend is a very strong dot that grants rage generation by way of Blood Surge, the talent to its right. It's a little annoying to use on its own, but that gets solved by Blood and Thunder, which is a direct damage increase. It has amazing talent synergy with Rend and Blood Surge. It's just great. This really makes the class work so smoothly. It's incredible how good of a job that Blizzard did in reworking this little collection of talents to very seamlessly apply this bleed and then grant you more rage generation through the bleed application and so on. I just love the way it plays now. Now let's take a look at the raid talent tree. The main talents I swap around are boosts to single target damage, which are great in raid, for AoE damage, which is better while leveling and in Mythic Plus. I tend to go for more movement speed while leveling than I do in Mythic Plus. Movement talents can be really good in raid too, or they can be optional. It's very much up to you and fight specifics. On the subject of legendary and talent interaction, if you're wearing Reprisal, you should absolutely talent into Intervene. If not, it's really up to you. You definitely don't need Intervene to function most of the time. Similarly, Impenetrable Wall is a terrific talent, but if you're wearing the wall, it's worthless. It literally doesn't do anything. In that case, you're better off speccing into anything else. In terms of key talents for this build, I would say Punish is a really nice talent over on the right side of the spec tree. It just gives you a stacking damage reduction debuff on enemies. You can pretty easily maintain 2 stacks on a single target, so 6% damage reduction for a single talent is amazing. And 10% more shield slam damage is pretty nice too. Slammage damage. Over on the left side of the class tree, Sudden Death is a really nice single target damage increase. It's very simple, it's just free execute procs on occasion. It's pretty hard, it's pretty good. Now let's move on to the Mythic Plus tree. In the class tree, I just want to point out Seismic Reverberation. It's sort of on the bottom right side of the class tree. It makes it so that if you hit 3 or more targets with Revenge, you get 30% extra damage on it. Pretty nice. Pretty big damage bonus, and yeah, you know, feels good. Also having Stormbolt, a nice 30-second cooldown, pretty decent stun, is really good in Mythic Plus as well. In the Spec tree, Thunderlord on the left side just gives you a lot of cooldown reduction on Demoralizing Shout, and it synergizes nicely with some of your other talents like Booming Voice and Unstoppable Force, and so on. Show of Force winds up being quite a bit better talent than Sudden Death in AoE because you're getting a lot more revenge damage and a lot more thunderclap damage, and that really adds up pretty quickly when you're doing decent sized pulls. If you're doing just, you know, single target stuff, raid, whatever, or maybe you're doing leveling dungeons and you're only pulling one pack at a time, maybe Sudden Death will work better for you. But in general, in any sort of AoE situation, I do prefer Show of Force. Down at the bottom of the Protection Warrior tree, you have the option of taking Booming Voice or Ravager. If you're taking Thunderlord, I definitely think that Booming Voice is better. Ravager has had its cooldown increased up to 90 seconds. It's a pretty good AoE burst damage and rage generation cooldown still, but it basically generates the same rage per second as Booming Voice does if you don't have Thunderlord. So if you have Thunderlord, you're just getting more rage over the course of a fight than you would with Ravager. They're still relatively close in value. I think either of them is a good option, but as they are currently tuned, Indomitable is basically impossible to give up, and Violent Outburst is really good as well. So you basically have to make a choice between Booming Voice or Ravager. It's up to you. I prefer Booming Voice just to keep things simple and because it has nice talent synergy, but you can play with Ravager if you prefer. There's certainly nothing wrong with either of them. And just finally, before I finish up here, Enduring Defenses makes your shield blocks last for 8 seconds instead of 6. It's just the greatest talent I've ever seen. It's so strong for increasing your shield block uptime. You can easily maintain 100% shield block uptime, even with Garbo gear. Basically no haste, you can still have 100% uptime. It's really nice. And it synergizes pretty nicely with other stuff in your kit as well. Shield specialization right below it, giving you more block value and so on. Now let's move on to the rotation. The core Protection Warrior rotation involves generating rage with Shield Slam and Thunderclap, using that rage to maintain shield block, and then spending everything that's left over on Ignore Pain, Revenge, or Execute. If you are wearing Reprisal, you will want to charge and intervene on cooldown to maximize that Legendary's value as a rage generator, a damage increase, and a source of shield block uptime. If you're not using Reprisal, don't worry about using charge and intervene, just use them to move around whenever you need to, that's it. In the interest of making the rotation as simple as possible to understand, consider these 4 instructions as a fundamental component of tanking as a prot warrior. First, always maintain shield block. Use your offensive cooldowns on pulls or on cooldown. Just try to overlap them whenever possible to maximize your damage. Use defensive cooldowns to mitigate predictable damage or to stay alive in case of emergencies. And use Ignore Pain to spend your rage defensively. If you're struggling to stay alive, Ignore Pain should be your number 2 rage spender after shield block. Protection Warrior has no real difference in the way that it handles AoE and single target. In terms of its rotation, Revenge and Thunderclap both will deal more damage in AoE naturally, but their defensive values are still the same regardless of what you're doing. Now let's just quickly go over stats. Strength is your best stat, so more item level is always good. Getting more stamina and more armor and stuff is nice too. In terms of secondary stats, haste is your best, versatility is the second best. Crit and mastery are both about the same. Crit is better for damage and actually better for overall damage reduction, but it's unreliable, you know, it's parry chance. So If you parry, you don't take any damage from an auto attack, but if you have, say, 10% parry chance, that means 90% of the time it's not doing anything. Mastery chance is just chance to block for double value. Your block chance is 100%, so it's going to be a more reliable source of damage reduction, but it's also a little bit of overkill. You basically are never going to get killed by damage that you're blocking. It's pretty hard to get auto attack to death on a warrior now. It's technically not impossible. It's just hard. Anyways, the main priority is just to go after more item level, and then if you're comparing pieces that are around the same item level, go for the ones that have more haste or versatility on them. Legendaries are pretty quick to go over. I've already talked about them quite a bit, but just for the sake of this section of the video, Reprisal and Unity are the best pair of legendaries for Raid and Mythic Plus. You're not locked into running Reprisal if you hate it. You can use the wall instead. It's good in terms of, overall value. It is nice. It's not as good as Reprisal, but it's not going to get you killed anymore. It's just a sacrifice that works just fine. You give up some power, and then the class is more simple. That's okay. Now let's go over Covenants. Llarold and Kyrian are both totally functioning options during the Dragonflight pre-patch. Llarold is a stronger choice. It gives you 4 rage per second, which is quite a bit, and it pairs better with a Reprisal setup due to the increased rage generation that you get out of Reprisal. Because of the loss of Sepulchre of the First Ones' tier bonuses, maintaining Conqueror's Banner indefinitely is a lot more difficult now. It's not impossible. It takes about 17 to 18 rage per second to maintain Conqueror's Banner 100% of the time, and that is something I'm able to do on a training dummy on the PTR, but it is definitely harder than it used to be. Like, I can just barely do it, whereas if I were to go onto retail and just do that on a training dummy, pretty easy. This makes Llarold a weaker option than it has been throughout Seasons 3 and 4, with Kyrian once again getting a chance to be semi-competitive. Kyrian's a lot simpler and easier to play than Llarold. It deals more immediate and controlled damage. It also has a nice crowd control component to it, keeping enemies from being able to leave the spear is pretty cool. It does come at the loss of consistent rage generation and stat budget from Llarold's Conqueror's Banner. And also just the fact that if you were playing a Protection Warrior during Shadowlands, you probably were Llarold. So having to go swap back and get a little comfortable with that, maybe not worth doing. But if you're making a new character and you're bouncing around in Shadowlands content and just seeing what's up, Kyrian's probably a better starting point. Kyrian pairs a lot better with the simpler and less powerful wall setup. It's not as good at the highest possible potential levels, but using Spear of Bastion effectively is easier than maximizing the value of Conqueror's Banner. So, basically both are good. It's really up to you which one you want to choose to play. If you're already playing Llarold, just stick with it. If you hate Llarold and you really want to go back to Kyrian, but by all means do. Or Night Fae. Night Fae will work a little worse than Kyrian, just like it has all expansion. But, it's basically the same as Kyrian, just slightly worse. Alright, well that's it. Prot Warrior is looking really strong. I'm very excited. I'm trying to keep my level of excitement low because I'm worried about getting very excited and then it getting nerfed into dust. But I haven't been this excited about Prot Warrior since Warlords of Draenor beta, which was the last time it was this strong, and they nerfed it in the last couple of weeks of beta and basically killed it. I'm hoping that won't happen this time. I think it might not happen this time. I'm praying it will not happen this time. Anyways, thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Take care, have fun in 10.0, and like and subscribe, and have a good one. Bye.